I'm going to take advantage of it. I'm very pleased. Attention, please. I know names. I'll call them out. Quiet. I'm very pleased to have an illustrious panel with us tonight. As you know, each year when we do these things, and obviously this is only our third one of these, but we have done these in the past State of the Industry luncheons when we used to do them at Infocom. This is our State of the Industry dinner now that we're doing them at a collaboration week. So I have a panel here that I'm going to ask some canned questions of. They are aware of them. And then I will allow you from the audience to ask questions of them. So I'm going to start at the far end with Ted. Would you do me a favor, introduce yourself, tell us what organization you're with, what you do with them in about 2 to 3 sentences.
2 to 3 sentences. My name is Ted Colton, and I work for a company you may have heard of called Crestron.
He's too close.
The audio's not set up, so I'll yell.
One more time. We'll translate.
You want me to say it one more time? Yeah. My name is Ted Colton, and I work for a little company called Crestron.
My name is Vanessa Jensen. I work for Shure Incorporated. We're an audio manufacturer.
Hi, Vanessa.
I'm Gary Sorrentino. I work for Zoom.
My name is Ken Scaturro. I work for Yorktel, Systems Integrator, IT Service Management, long, deep pedigree and collaboration. And just a quick note, we've just did a recent acquisition of VCA, so some of our partners and customers may be in the audience tonight. So I look forward to meeting some of the new family that we're pulling together. So thank you.
I'm Jason Goecke. I joined Intel in the Client Compute Group about 8 months ago. I'm the GM for Intel Unite. Before that, I was with Cisco with WebEx Teams, and that's just because I'm trying to attach my brand to Eric right now.
My name is Karl Hantho. I'm the president of Pexip here in the Americas. If you don't know Pexip, we are a SaaS company. We provide video conferencing as both services and self-hosted on software. We'll talk more about that during the course of this conversation.
And my name is Jeff Shiffman. I run global sales for Vyopta. For those of you that don't know us, we provide business insights through analytics, both historical, real-time monitoring and learning. And I appreciate everybody's time tonight.
So this next question I'd like you all to answer, and then you don't have to answer all the rest. Those of you who know me on the panel, and there are a few of you that know me well, know I will cut you off if you go too long-winded. In what way is your firm moving the UC and collaboration industry forward into the future? And I'll start with you, Jeff.
So somebody told me before I came here tonight on the panel, don't sit in the first seat or the last. I didn't take that advice. But so we're all about data and analytics. So when we talk about the future, we want to be able to provide insights on what customers are doing, meaning what's their adoption, what's their growth, what's their utilization. We talk about workplace insights, what's happening in those rooms. So when they go to build out their future and they look into the future, they have data to back up their insights, meaning they're not flying blind, there's no guessing here. So when we talk about the future, we talk about being able to provide important information to make better business decisions.
So I guess I'll take it on two different levels. I know this is mostly about end users, but from a partner perspective, we're 100% through the channels. So part of what we're doing to help change this industry is helping our channel partners see how to move from transaction-based business to recurring revenue, how to look at a customer journey differently perhaps than they do in a transaction world. So it's all about the channel. From an end user perspective, at Pexip we do a couple things. One is we're very focused on the end user experience, how to make it super simple to join a meeting and have a great experience during the meeting. And then, although we all hate to use this word called interoperability, we are keenly focused on trying to make the various technologies work better together, whether that's traditional endpoints dialing into a Teams room or into a Hangouts meeting or into a Zoom meeting, whatever that is, we try to be in the middle of that fix and make it all work in a good way.
I'll do just one microphone, unlike you. So we're Intel United folks. Where we started was really as wireless screen share about 4 years ago. And the real motivation for Intel was to push Intel architecture or CPUs into collaboration spaces. Obviously, that's beginning to take off a lot of platforms out there, like Microsoft Team Rooms and Zoom Rooms and things like that. And what we're focused now on with Intel Unite is really around creating the... Shut up. Yeah, okay, that one works. Were you shutting me off?
I did not.
Is really focusing around creating a unified experience, automation capabilities, and really allowing the major UCs to extend to every conference room. You know, at a place like Intel, I think 6% of our conference rooms actually have video. So how do you create cost-effective CapEx endpoints to be able to actually get into every conference room or collaboration space to do that? And that's where we're focused.
Yeah, great. Our approach at Yorktel is to provide managed services to our customers, to do passive and proactive monitoring of the infrastructure, monitoring, alarming, resolution before the customer can identify that there's an issue. So by doing that, we're increasing the user experience from our customers, while at the same time creating a better user adoption story for our customers out there as well.
So I think we look at it this way. We're all chasing that new digital workspace. And so that's all about culture and people, but it's all about enabling technology. And I think Zoom fits really well in there, because one of the things they try to do is they try to have that simple platform. It's very reliable for those who use it. It's very innovative, but I think most important, it's very integrated. And so as we chase the new digital workspace, it's all about enabling technology, and that's how I kind of look at Zoom. It's more of an enabler for that new culture that we're trying to bring in.
Thank you. So at Shure, we're really passionate about audio, and we want to bring quality audio to all conference collaboration spaces. And as a result, we really kind of drive for simple, easy setup, easy to use, really kind of focused on the end user experience. Also, standardization for our customers. We want to make sure that we're partnering with companies like Zoom, Cisco, so on and so forth, so that our products work out of the box and are compatible, in all collaboration spaces. And yeah, that's it.
Great. And at Crestron, we've heard a little bit about our history, rich history and control and automation of the spaces in which people live, and the spaces people learn and education, and all the spaces people work, and then all the places people play, whether it's a restaurant or a hospitality industry. As we advance unified communications, we're looking at providing that human experience and bringing that control and automation experience to really make that digital workspace something more simply than, can you see me or can you hear me? When I walk into the room, is everything available to me? And we're really striving towards that by utilizing a combination of technologies around Internet of Things, ambient intelligence, artificial and machine learning for the future.
Great. Next question, I'm going to throw a curve at you a bit. In the last few weeks, we've seen a significant amount of M&A activity in the integrated channel space. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? Yes, I want Ken to start, but I also want to add to this. We're also seeing a big issue with the potential of the coronavirus that we've all seen and heard in the last few days, and let's address that as well. So Ken, I'm going to have you start purposely.
Well, I'll start with the coronavirus. I was supposed to be in Europe next week for a bunch of customer meetings that were flying into our facility just outside of London, and just this morning they canceled. A big multinational organization that makes candy said for the next 2 weeks nobody in their organization is allowed to travel outside of the country. So I think we're going to start seeing more of this as we go along. And I'm not a doctor, I'm not a researcher in here, but am I worried? Absolutely. Right? Am I start to worry about our products getting shipped from overseas countries where they're manufactured and starting to delay our systems integration work? I am. Right? So I think there's absolutely some concerns related to that outside of the human element of it.
And the M&A issue, since you...
So the M&A part, sure. So there's been a lot of topics and discussions these last couple of days related to, can a pure systems integrator survive in this organization? We haven't been a pure systems integrator in quite some time. 50% of our revenue has been recurring revenue related to the managed services that I spoke of earlier. Staffing and consulting is part of that. But the reality is there are some very strong systems integrators out there. We were fortunate enough to acquire VCA over the last couple of weeks. They bring a very strong cadre of people to our organization. They're about 60 people strong. They've got a 25,000 square foot systems integration facility right outside of New York City. And Dave Berlin, who's a founder, has been a member of our family for a long time, is coming over, and he's going to be with our organization for a long time. So I think there's a great opportunity out there for the right companies to merge We're fortunate to have similar cultures. His organization was very family-oriented. Our organization is very family-oriented, and pulling together two great organizations like that, I think is going to make us 1 + 1 = 4. But I think there's a lot more opportunity out there across the board, just not on the integration side. We acquired a Microsoft practice 2 years ago, gave us 8 golds and 3 silver certifications, and we got probably 200 net new logos since that acquisition as well. So there's a lot of good things to be doing out there for the right fit, for the right part of the business.
Okay, other comments from the rest of you on either the coronavirus or the M&A?
So from an M&A perspective, I think for those of us in the room that might have a little gray hair as mine's developing, M&A is part of the business life cycle. And M&A is really a result of that innovation life cycle. So great companies come and great companies go, and great companies, even greater companies, sustain a long-term performance. So it's quite natural to see the M&A. It's really unfortunate for those that are caught up in what you might think of as the friction associated with that M&A activity, but it's around driving net new innovation. And I think our industry is experiencing this. And I think ultimately it will cause everybody in the room to rethink skill sets, to rethink business models, to rethink their approach and their products and solutions that they deliver. And so I think in the end it's a good thing. I think that we expand our footprint. We move from 6% video conferencing in a company like Intel to then hopefully moving into double-digit, triple-digit, and that expands the market opportunity. And if you look back historically, you know, the Fortune 500 changes about every 20 years. About 50% is no longer around, so it's a good thing.
Other comments from any of you?
Yeah, when we talk about the virus, obviously one life lost is one too many. But where Karl and Eric at Zoom, and this is where we come together and we really shine as a family, where our products make a difference. And that really tells something that we should all be proud of in this room today, because when people can't get out of their home or can't travel to their office, or literally lives are at stake here, the products in this room are making a difference. So this is the time, whether it's a Katrina, a 9/11, or the virus that we're seeing today, where we shine as an organization, and everybody should be really proud and really give yourself a round of applause, because what you guys are doing and ladies are doing are making a difference. So I commend everybody in here, and I'm really proud to be part of this family, especially during this time.
Good point.
And I wanted to add to that, I mean, we're in an industry now where we can really help. I mean, there are people all over the world that can't travel, business is suffering, the stock market's crashing around us, and I can tell you what Zoom's doing. Any connection made on Zoom out of China is free. We started it weeks ago. As soon as we heard about the virus, we said we don't care. There's no such thing as a paid license, a not paid license. If you're doing a connection out of China anywhere in the world, it's just free. And I think we should all just look back at our business processes and say, really, what does that cost us? Right? We have a world pandemic. We're all suffering from it. I think we can all do as much as we can do, and maybe that's not even enough.
And I would add to that, on top of what you're saying, is that as an industry, we are definitely helping and doing things, but how can we also think about creating new user experiences and contexts where we can eliminate the need to go to large events and things like this through the experiences that we're creating, the technologies that we're doing, to really say, hey, this could be a turning point where we really change things, not only because the coronavirus has an impetus to do it, but just environmental concerns and things like that. How do we up all of our games to actually do that? Right? And then quickly on the M&A side of things, that what we've seen out there, like when I was at WebEx and things like that, is that you had a couple of types of acquisitions. One was really around creating scale through an accretive business and adding that to yours, but also strategic. And I think you touched upon that a bit, which is how do you add the skill sets? What we were seeing is, as things are moving to the cloud and more services-based and things like this, like Zoom is doing, your value as doing system integration, things like this, is how do you embed things more deeply into an organization through developer capabilities and integration and things like that into systems. That should be a big driver into M&A over time as well, on a more strategic basis as opposed to an accretive revenue basis as well and scale.
Next question. Is the AV and collaboration market shrinking or growing?
I think based on everything we just said, it's been growing and will continue to grow, and things like this will make it grow further.
But I also think it's going to grow, because think about it. Who's a millennial in the room? Yeah, hardly anybody. and that was the answer. But think about it, right? We don't even know what the workforce 5 years from now is going to want. We're imagining it, we're dreaming it, right? But we don't actually know what it's going to want. So I think it's growing as the demand grows every single day. We're not keeping up what people do in IRL, right? I mean, in IRL, they're doing so much more than they can do at work, and I think that those that talk to millennials and interview new employees and things like that find that the demand when they come to work is, it should be the same as home, and it's not. And so I think it's growing and growing, but we don't really even know where it's going to end up because we don't even know what they want.
Well, come to our session tomorrow morning. We are having a professor from Rutgers who is also a partner in a PR firm talking about what's happening with the Generation Z. And then we are having a panel of Generation Z people talk to us. This was something you all asked for last year, and we're going to give this to you this year, and then you let us know if we want to continue it next year.
And to add to the question, I think that the industry is growing, and we're seeing newcomers, and we're seeing new entrants, and we're seeing adjacencies come together. So all the recent studies, I think earlier today, there was $167 billion in the overall collaboration business when you add it all up, at a 17% compound annual growth rate. So it depends upon how you measure, but we're in growth mode. And if you're not in growth mode, you need to look around, and you need to look at your offering, you need to look at your services, you need to look at your partnerships, and take advantage of that, because the market is growing.
So my last question to all of you, before I open it up to the audience, and Ted, I'll start with you since you have mic in hand. What are your 18-month predictions for our industry?
You know, there's really something that's been quite phenomenal in the last maybe 4 or 5 years, and that's when we think about the early video conferencing element of unified communications. We all had to focus on ISDN or H.323 or TCP/IP stacks and all these elements, and today we don't think about that. And if you ever had the chance to walk into a traditional telepresence environment, you never really thought about the technology in any way, shape, or form. And in today's environment, we walk into meeting rooms, and whether we're using Microsoft Teams, which is growing tremendously, or we're using Zoom, we walk in, we understand, and we're familiar. I think the exciting thing for each and every one of us in the industry is that through the leadership and the partnerships of those organizations and the likes of everybody here, we're going to see net new features come in each and every month. And so think of it from this perspective. The day you buy your brand new BMW, you drive it off the lot, it's probably not going to ever be as good as that day. You might get a firmware update, might change some performance tunes. However, if you buy a Tesla, and that Tesla comes with a brand new autopilot capability, that artificial intelligence and machine learning applied to the car is going to change the way you drive. And we're going to see that in the next 18 months. In partnership with everybody around the room for our meetings and experiences.
Great analogy, thank you.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. AI, machine learning, is a big trend that we're going to see in the next 18 months. I also think that we're going to continue to see the consumerization of corporate audio. You know, we have millennials coming in, we have individuals working more and more remotely. So I think those are key trends, and we definitely need to keep our eyes on them, and we need to work together as an industry to ensure that we're providing the right solutions.
You know, for the next 18 months, so probably we're going to see more AI and machine learning. We've got to see that. I think we're going to see a complete difference of when we try to communicate. It's going to be more seamless. It's going to be more frictionless. It's going to not need screens, maybe. I mean, we had a great, for those who attended, who was at Gateway today? Right? Wasn't that a great presentation about some of the new technologies and the new features that are coming out? But how are we going to get those glasses that fit and things like that into our future? And I think the next 18 months, we're going to see some really revolutionary changes, not just an evolution of the market.
Great, I agree with all of that, but it's the other part is the manufacturers here that I'm with and the service providers I'm with are making it easier to use, easier to connect, easier to install, better analytics, better reporting across the board, and by doing that, then building the underlying scalability of these things. So when you're talking about some of the people here at this table and the scale of their products and how many folks they can drive, I think it's going to be at a level that we couldn't imagine years ago. So it's exciting.
Yeah, I would agree with all that and say one area where we all need to focus and where we are is users are expecting the same experience from a consumer application as they are from the enterprise application. But that can be very difficult for IT departments. So we have to help the IT departments with shrinking budgets get out of their own way, providing tools and capabilities that make it just as easy for them as it is for the end user in terms of those experiences as well. And I think we'll see a lot of progress there.
A lot of the same. Really sucks to be last.
You missed that advice next time.
But having said
that way.
So AI certainly around improving the user experience, how to make meetings more effective, how to make collaboration more effective. I also agree. I think focus on the user experience and customer success and really following the journey so that those technologies, those solutions that you all as end users are buying are actually working and delivering on the ROI that you want. And then I think we get more into B2C. I think we're going to see a lot more B2C activity. That's going to be pretty interesting and innovative.
Good luck, Jeff.
And finally, I looked to Randy, who gave me advice. He said I shouldn't sit here, so you're right. And the bar is open for anybody that's still interested. But my perspective is a little different. So I was in Chicago the past weekend with my kids, 18-year-old, 16-year-old, and 10-year-old, and we were at the All-Star game, and we had access to a bunch of good things, and LeBron, and Kawhi, and Dr. J, and so on and so forth, right? But they were more interested in meeting with a guy named Ninja, and a girl named Elisa, and a guy named Jesser, and I don't know if anybody in here knows who those people are, but TikTok, 38 million followers, YouTube, 14 million followers, Snapchat, 12 million followers. It's going there. They all collaborate, they all use mobile, they're all on video, they live on it and breathe on it. So what we think today is the right thing. Get ready, because it is going to explode, and we are all going to reap the benefits of it. So I'm very enthusiastic of the future, and it's going to be bright, and it's going to be very good for everyone.
So those are my canned questions. Now we're going to open it up to the audience. David, we have a mic. Can you walk around with it? And if we just state your name, whom you're with, and what your question is, and whether you want it for the panel or a specific individual. Nobody's going to ask a question.
First off, thank you guys, and thank you, Ann, and everyone from the IMCCA for hosting this. So I'm Andrew Gross. I work for Crestron. My question, I think, leads off of what the last speaker was talking about. So I don't think anybody argues that, of course, Gen Z, millennial generation, right, and beyond that one, we've already collaborated through many means of social media. We've grown up with it. We're used to it. But how do you see that to everyone, both from a manufacturing standpoint as well as an integrated workplace standpoint? How do you see that actually being deployed and or made or serviced or managed properly in the business and in the enterprise space? Because Snapchat and TikTok and YouTube, they're great as consumer devices, but what does that look like in the enterprise? What does the personal device look like? What does the personal collaboration device or platform look like, whether it's from Microsoft, Zoom, a company that hasn't been out there yet, or possibly a manufacturer that hasn't made something yet? So I'm curious what the thoughts are from the panel on that one.
Notice how they're all jumping on this really quickly. Ted?
Stand in front so you don't hear. Okay, I'll stand in front. So I think you're correct. I think that we all have cell phones, and thank you for loading up that question. I think the way that we use these in our daily lives, we're all using artificial intelligence. We don't like to say it's artificial intelligence, but every time you say, hey Siri or hey Google, you're using artificial intelligence. And every time you share with your family on any of the number of applications that are possible here, you're using video collaboration technology, which began 30, 40 years ago. So I think it becomes intertwined in our lives. And I think through chat applications and things that we're seeing in the marketplace, that forms the fabric of the relationships in business. In partnerships, business to customer, business to consumer, this is how it happens. You check into the hotel, you get a text. Tell me how it's going. So I think that's going to be pervasive, and we see that exploding, and we see that exploding in chat-based work and collaboration work. And I think we're on the precipice of a new style of work and new business process automation using those tools.
But I think one of the problems of the question was, how are we going to bring these into the enterprise, right? And I think that's what you're asking, right? I mean, we all have those tools. I think the enterprise is going to have to figure out how to take some of these common applications that everybody uses for free and figure out how to harden them a little bit so that they work inside the enterprise.
But they do. Your application works there, Microsoft Teams works there.
I got it, but it's just, at the end of the day, some of them are not as secure as some of the enterprises want, even today, some of our applications, right? They want different things that the applications don't do. They don't do discovery, they don't do encryption the right way, right? The CISO is now the big name at the table, right? And so when you bring these things in, do they function? Of course. Do they function like a bank wants it to? Not yet. Right? And we all need to improve that because we all got to understand about keys and encryption and things that just to make two people talk wasn't important. Right? Now we have to be able to talk and communicate and collaborate in a very simple, frictionless way like we use TikTok, but it's got to be inside the four walls or at least cloud-based, right, where it's secure so the enterprises can hook up to it. Right? And I don't think we're there yet because I think we're finding that balance between if we were to lock them down the way we wanted to, and I've been in the industry for a long time, mostly in banks, if we were to lock them down the way we wanted to, they would use them, right? And so there we have to find that balance right now of giving that flexibility that everybody enjoys today, right? But still make it hardened for the enterprise. And I don't think we found that yet. So I think the answer is we still need to discover applications or take our current applications and get them in a way where they're secure enough to do that. I think that was the answer you were kind of looking for.
Yeah.
Got it.
I'll add to that because I think there's two things there. One is what you can say as an individual on a social network is very different than what you can say as an individual working for a corporation, both internally and externally. And to your point, how do you build those IT controls while making them very easy to use with shrinking budgets and things like that, that actually allow these things to proliferate while satisfying the corporate needs for compliance? I mean, I joined Intel, I think, 8 months ago. I had to go through all these compliance trainings and everything else. I had to go to. I've been speaking publicly for a while, unlike the gentleman from Crestron. And I still had to go through all these trainings and everything else. And so that's one area of it, which is the human aspect. And then from an Intel perspective, this goes beyond United Collaboration, is how do you create the different security standards and capabilities to seamlessly move workloads between the cloud and the client and take advantage of everything out there. And there's a lot of work being done there where you're creating these cloud native architectures that can seamlessly move between different compute platforms and things like that. So there's a whole set of layers in terms of the human factor, the compute factor, cloud versus the compute that you have on the premise that is really nascent right now, I think, and there's a lot of work for all of us to do there.
Another question. Okay, hearing no more questions, let me thank our panel very much for your time.
Thanks, everyone.